Namaskar. Qatar's ownership of the United States using just a $40 billion investment. That was the crux of the article that my good friend Savio Rodrigues wrote in his Goa Chronicle today. And that's the subject today. We're going to be talking about why this has become suddenly important because the Qataris royal family gifted a $400 million plane to Donald Trump. Is this kosher? Does it meet the propriety of all the requirements that are there for accepting gifts? And what exactly is Qatar looking for from Trump? And what about Trump's crusade against Harvard? Of the 60 odd billion dollars that Harvard has, how much of that is Qatar's? All these and more. And now let's welcome Savio Rodrigues. Savio, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel. How are you?
I'm very good, Shri. Thank you for having invited me on your show. It's always a pleasure.
The first thing that shocked me today was seeing the new Syrian president along with Trump, along with MB. Start there. I don't understand what Trump is doing. The more he came swinging, and suddenly he's becoming very very docile.
So I'll say it as brutally possible so that the people of America and people of the rest of the world understand. When Donald Trump was elected the president of America, I had written an article in the Goa Chronicle where I termed Donald Trump as a joker and not just a funny man. I was referring to the Joker, a character created by Christopher Nolan in his movie The Dark Knight. This Joker is an unstoppable force, and unfortunately, he's going to come up against an immovable object, and that is resistance to Islamic radicalism and Islamic terrorism. He is also a liar, he is a hypocrite, and sadly, I feel very sad to say that because he was a very anti-China individual, somebody who was going to take the fight to China. But I think he is the latest victim of the Sino-Islamic Lobby. He has sold his soul to the Sino-Islamic Lobby, the China Islamic Lobby. Now, why do I say that? The first things first and foremost, let's take talk about what he has done over the last 1 week as far as the India-Pakistan crisis is concerned. He claimed that he's mediated. The Indian government has denied all claims that Donald Trump has made. He even spoke about and taking the issue of Kashmir, which is an India-Pakistan issue, and he's internationalized that. He's claimed that trade was the reason that India and Pakistan decided to have a ceasefire, which was again rubbished by the Indian government. What is Donald Trump trying to tell the world? Try to tell the world it's a thousand-year problem. India and Pakistan's issue with Kashmir is not a thousand-year problem. So he is trying to bring India and Indian belief systems back to the conflict that Sanatana Dharma and Islam has, and that, in my understanding, is his reference to a thousand years. But India was never about the fight of Sanatana Dharma and Islamic. It is the reality of what the situation on the ground is. The India-Pakistan problem. The India-Pakistan problem is the Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as well as terrorism emanating out of Pakistan. Other than that, India doesn't really care about Pakistan. But while this has happened, we have Donald Trump actually accepting a 400 million US dollar plane from the Qatari government. Now, his spokespersons might have a fantastic spin to whatever he's done. The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump has taken a bribe from the Qatari government. That's the truth. Donald Trump is a hypocrite and a liar. And right now, he's a bribe taker. Now, let me explain why and what is the real problem. Now, there's a wonderful, organization called the Middle Eastern Forum. And the Middle Eastern Forum, over the last several years, have been tracking Islamic, outreach, Islamic activities across America and the rest of the world as well. So they mapped what Qatar has been doing in the US over the last decade from 2012 onwards. And this is what they realized. And this is what their investigation brought out. What we did in Goa Chronicle is understand what their report is and bring it out to the people in as simple a language as possible. The Qatari government has spent 39.8 billion in America. 39.8 billion. What have they spent it on? Basically, it is about embedding the Qatari interest into the fabric of the American institutions. So they have invested in education, they're invested in business, they've invested in politics, they've invested in media, and they've even invested in national infrastructure. 84% of Qatari US investments target luxury real estate, private equity funds, hedge funds, and sport ventures. Since 2012, 6.2 billion have been invested by Qatar into Manhattan properties. So they're looking at New York, they're looking at Washington, DC, where they have been using a lot of the money. Empire State Building, there's an investment of Qatar. Plaza Hotel, there's an investment of Qatar. But the real troubling one, in my understanding, and what the MEA has also highlighted, is the focus on education. So since 2012, 6.25 billion US dollars have been invested by Qatar in colleges and universities. 980 million US dollars was used from Jan 2023 to October 2024. Please understand, we are talking about Qatar, a nation where the Hamas terrorists were taking shelter. We are talking about Qatar, a nation that supports terrorism directly and indirectly. We are talking about America that has made its point in fighting against terrorism. Yet, like hypocrites, they've been accepting money from Qatar from since 2012, almost 40 billion US dollars, out of which 6.25 billion US dollars is in education. No wonder the US universities were having pro-Palestinian protests. Otherwise, why would that have happened? They wouldn't have not cared. They were anti-Israel. They were anti-Semitic. They were attacking the very fact that they did want Islamic radicalism and Islamic terrorism to be questioned. Your Al Jazeera as a news portal that belongs to Qatar, what is it? Nothing but a platform for Islamic radicalism and a support to Islamic terrorism. Is that what Donald Trump promised the people of the US? Please look at the investments that Qatar holds in the American energy sector. Tomorrow, if America and Qatar have a fallout, the American energy sector will be throttled by the Qatari government. They're very slowly, very clandestinely making their way into the American system. Since 2016 only, 71.5 million US dollars has been spent in lobbying, in PR, and in legal firms in the US so that Qatar gets a great name. Qatar is a terrorist sympathizing state. Donald Trump rose to power wanting to fight Islamic radicalism and Islamic terrorism. Can you please tell me, Shri, since you are in America, since you're a part of the American system, is this not hypocrisy? That you are giving wind to the wings of Islamic terrorism and Islamic radicalism. To take it a step further, you now have him standing with a designated terrorist of Syria, who unfortunately is the head of Syria at this point of time. Is this the new normal? That any terrorist organization that unseats a known ruling government becomes the government, and therefore the people around the world, countries like the US, will accept them. Like we have accepted Taliban. Wasn't it the US that designated Taliban as a terrorist organization? Wasn't it US that designated terrorists and ISIS and Al Qaeda in Syria and other parts of the Middle East as terrorists? Today, how come Donald Trump is shaking hands with them? Has Donald Trump sold his soul to the Sino-Islamic Lobby? Donald Trump is a businessman. I kept telling right from the start, he will sell America. He will sell the hopes of the people of America. Unfortunately, the people of America are fools. They have elected a joker as the president, a joker who thinks he can come into India and deal with the India Kashmir problem. We don't need a Donald Trump to tell us how to deal with our problems. We know how to deal with it. Donald Trump needs to tell the rest of the world what is he doing with Islamic lobbies. Why has he accepted a bribe from the Qatari government?
Thank you so much, Savio. Yes, it is very embarrassing to see him stand by the side of a terrorist, proscribed by just about everybody in the world, and now suddenly washing off that he shook his hands with Trump and therefore he's all right. And also this gift, very very questionable. I'm afraid he's trying to go after Howard. Is Howard buying back its? Getting back into his good books by doing this? I don't know, but somehow everything looks suspicious. It does not pass the smell test. I completely agree with you, Savio. I have a slightly different question, a very interesting one. Whose nuclear material was there in Kirana Hills and in the other sites that India took out? You got any guesses?
Well, I would think when the US got really rattled by what happened when our Air Force did what it's supposed to do, I believe it has got something to do with the US. I believe US has got some connections to it. That's why they were rattled. I believe the US, and I'm saying this openly, I believe the US wants the Pakistani problem to continue just like they want the Bangladesh problem to continue. The US is using the ability to hold these two Islamic nations so that they can bring India to the table as far as the trade agreements are concerned. That is why Donald Trump has come out and saying it is the trade deal he keeps emphasizing on. But the Indian government has denied it, which means Donald Trump is sending out a message that he is looking at somehow getting a benefit in the FTA with India. Has Donald Trump dealt with the problem in Bangladesh where there are Islamic radicals slaughtering the minorities? What is Donald Trump going to do to the Syrian terrorists who have been killing Christians and other minorities? How many have they killed ever since they've come into power? Is Donald Trump going to tell the Pope what has he done to save the Christians over there or the people of other faiths? He is allowing Islamic radicalism for his business interests. And America needs to be afraid, very afraid. Today he's taking money from Saudi Arabia. Yesterday he took money from Qatar. Tomorrow he might open doors for Syria saying, we are trying to build a bridge for Israel. Israel will not believe Donald Trump. Let me tell you that.
Yes, indeed. That relationship is strained. Some people say that Donald Trump does not want to talk to Benjamin Netanyahu anymore, and also that Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition appears to be crumbling a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. The next week or so, we will know. Be that as it may, this is not the way to go about dealing with democracies. I think something is really wrong with what the Trump administration is doing in the last week or so. I have a feeling that it has something to do with the destruction of some of the nuclear storage that was sitting in Pakistan. I think this is the main reason. They're just jumping up and down. That's how I feel. And you and I can disagree on this, but I think America and China will stop having wet dreams about controlling India through Pakistan. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I don't know whether they'll stop having the wet dreams. The point is this. Today, you have Donald Trump who has come as a savior of democracy to the world. That was what his positioning is. Make America great again. How is he going to make America great again? By dining and wining and dining with terrorists and terrorist nations. That's how he's going to make America great again. Donald Trump was never a friend of India. I've always said that. He is a friend based on needs. When his need is there for India, he will be with India. When his need is there for the American people, he will be with the American people. His interest with Israel also, please understand, he said he was going to stop the war between Ukraine and Russia. Did that happen? It did not happen. There is a dialogue happening. If Ukraine thinks he can get the better of Russia in that dialogue, they are sadly mistaken. He spoke about solving the Israel-Hamas problem. How is he going to solve that? He wanted to make a sort of a real estate extravagance in Gaza. Has that happened? Donald Trump is a liar. He's somebody who just gets handed over a paper by his team of deep state people who are controlling him, and he comes and he opens his mouth and blabbers. He's basically an egoistical person in that position. And now that he's getting close to the Sino-Islamic lobby, he sold his soul. I am telling you, write this down somewhere that Donald Trump is going to ruin America in the coming months.
Thank you so much, Savio. And viewers, this is where we're going to stop. We'll be coming back to Savio in the next few weeks because I kind of agree with what Savio is saying here, especially in the way he has dealt with the tariffs with various countries as well as this sudden friendship with the terrorists. We'll have to wait and see how this thing plays out. But I think in the weeks and months to come, you will know clearly whose nuclear storage material got taken out by India. Thank you so much, Savio, and please like, share, and subscribe to our channels. Namaskar.
Namaskar.